T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Chris is shit, son.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Chris is shit, son.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of JT Sports Live. I'm your host, JT. We got a really good episode on deck this afternoon, man. The Denver Broncos, to me, they are the most disrespected team going into this upcoming season. Most people have them winning only 4, 5, maybe 6 games at best, but to me, they could be a borderline playoff team, and I'm going to explain why. We're going to discuss the NFL's most toxic debate. Who's better, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? I watched the Dallas Cowboys preseason opener against the Los Angeles Rams. I was really looking forward to seeing what Trey Lance would do. And he was really underwhelming. And at this point, it's pretty evident this dude doesn't have what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. He pretty much should be in the UFL. We're also going to touch on Anthony Richardson. There's a lot of hype around him going into this season. But to me, Indianapolis could struggle this year with him at the helm. Can the Houston Texans live up to expectations? Most of us view this team as good enough to make a deep postseason run, but could they underachieve this year? Are the expectations too high? Could they fail to live up to the hype? We know that one of the biggest week 1 matchups in college football this year is going to be Miami taking on Florida. I'm taking Miami to win. I got to give you guys a few reasons why I'm taking my Hurricanes to smoke the Gators. Virginia Tech is a serious playoff contender. They profile ideally similar to last year's Missouri team, and they're not being talked about enough. We're also going to break down USC's defense. How improved are they going to be on that side of the football? And what is Tennessee's potential this year? Shout out to everybody that's tuned in on X, YouTube. Shout out to my guy, Kate Roan, with the $5 donation. He says, love the JT Sports live shows, man, and appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you for always supporting the channel. If you haven't already, smash that like button or your team is going to have bad luck this year. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on post notifications so you don't miss when we go live and drop new content. Remember, we are not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. You can find this episode and all of our other ones in audio format on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. If you're listening on podcasting platforms, do us a favor. Give us a 5-star review. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the start of this season. It helps us out a lot. It's a free way to support the channel. It only takes 3 seconds to do. Follow us on Instagram at JT_Sports_ and X at JT_Sports__. And before we dive into it, here's a quick word from our partner, Aura. In football, we all know that no quarterback can win without good protection up front. It's also important that you protect yourself from data brokers who sell your personal information online to scammers, spammers, and anybody else who may want to target you. That's why you should use Aura, today's sponsor of this episode. Aura shows which data brokers are passing away your information on the internet and automatically submits opt-out requests on your behalf. Go to aura.com/JTsports in description or pin comment down below to get a 14-day free trial and protect your personal information from being exposed online. Cleaning up your information online not only helps reduce the amount of spam you receive, but it also protects you from hackers who could use this info to help gain access into your social media accounts, bank accounts, or other sensitive information. Go to our sponsor, aura.com/JTsports in description or pin comment down below to gain access to your 14-day free trial and protect yourself from hackers looking to gain access into your sensitive information online. All right, everyone, let's get into it. I want to talk about the Denver Broncos because to me, this is the most disrespected team going into the upcoming NFL season. Most people only have this squad only winning 4, no more than 5 games, but I view Denver as a borderline playoff team. From a talent standpoint, they don't have a lot to be excited about. They got Patrick Surtain, a really good offensive line, and they got some decent weapons around rookie quarterback Bo Nix. But the main reason why I see Denver exceeding expectations this year is, for one, you got Sean Payton, one of the best offensive minds in the history of the game at head coach. And it's been a very long time since Sean Payton has had a losing season. His final season in New Orleans, he won 9 games with Jameis, Taysom Hill, and Trevor Siemian at quarterback. You give him Bo Nix, who in his mind is the second coming of Drew Brees, with how well he plays within structure, how accurate he is throwing the ball in between the numbers. He also has a lot of athleticism, which is going to allow Sean Payton to open the playbook up a little bit more, run some design quarterback runs, RPOs, read options. Denver's offense is going to be more improved this year compared to what they were in 2023. Russell Wilson was a bad fit for the kind of system that Sean Payton wanted to run. He didn't play well within structure. He didn't get the ball out on time. He wasn't a rhythmatic passer. And with how ineffective Denver's offense was at times, it slowed down the defense, because when your offense is going 3 and out, they can't sustain drives, they can't move the chains, your defense ends up being on the field for more plays than what they should be. They got tired and more fatigued faster. With the improved offense, that should be way more efficient at keeping opposing defenses on the field and their defense off the field, you should see a big spike in improvement under the Denver Broncos defense. Well, from the Denver Broncos defense under defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. What Denver did such a good job of last season was being able to force turnovers in big moments of games last year. This year, with your defense having more rest, with your offense being improved, this is going to be a defense that is going to be more reliable and dependable this season. I was a huge fan of Bo Nix when he was coming out of Oregon, and I thought the best place for him was Denver working with Sean Payton. He is pretty much the closest thing that there is to being an actual QB whisperer in the league. Look at his resume. He was able to go 5-0 with Teddy Bridgewater back in 2019 when Drew Brees got injured. He had Jameis Winston playing turnover-free football, something that no head coach has ever been able to do. Every year, there's a team that overachieves, even though they may not have a good roster, but because they have a great coach who's able to maximize the talent that he has on his team. And Sean Payton has a team that, from a schematic standpoint, can do everything that he wants offensively. Bo Nix, we saw him in his preseason debut. He was running around, extending plays, making great throws on the run. He's a really good athlete. Some of y'all may not remember this, but when he was coming out of Auburn, he was a 4- or 5-star recruit. He was one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks from his recruiting class. So there is a lot of physical upside that Bo Nix possesses, and he should end up being the second best rookie quarterback this season based off a production standpoint, right behind Caleb Williams. Because the big knock on Bo Nix was that he was a check-down machine coming out of Oregon. That's what Sean Payton wants. He wants a quarterback that's not going to hold on to the ball long, who's going to do a good job of being a point guard, being a distributor where he gets the ball out fast, he takes what the defense gives him. That's the perfect quarterback that Sean Payton needs for his system. Russell Wilson hindered the offense because he held on to the ball long, he took unnecessary sacks, and he just wasn't good throwing the football in the middle of the field. All those areas that Russ struggled in under Sean Payton are the complete opposite in terms of what are the strengths of Bo Nix's game. And Bo Nix, with him being coached by Sean Payton, this is going to elevate him to having a higher ceiling than what most analysts and scouts thought that he would have if he would have went to any other team. I really see Denver being around a 7-8 win team this year. And if this offensive line ends up playing at a top 10 level, because this isn't a trash offensive line. Don't let the stats fool you from last year. A lot of those sacks were not on Denver's offensive line. It was due to Russ' inability to play within the structure of Sean Payton's offense. Bo Nix is going to be such an upgrade at quarterback that not only is it going to improve the offense, but the whole entire team should get a giant performance boost with having improved quarterback play, which is why I see Denver being a team that could easily exceed expectations. Many record predictions that I've watched and seen on the internet don't have Denver winning no more than 5-6 games at best. But if everything goes right for Bo Nix and this defense is able to improve due to having an offense that isn't inept, then I can see this being an 8-win team. Maybe they could sneak into the playoffs, steal a couple of games in upset fashion, and be a wild card team this year. So I see Denver massively overachieving this year, and there's a lot of disrespect being thrown on Denver because people don't like Sean Payton. Nobody thought Bo Nix was that good, but they're about to prove a lot of you guys wrong this year. We got to talk about the most toxic debate in the NFL right now. who's better, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? When you think about this debate, you see two quarterbacks that are two of the most talented in the league in terms of their ability to throw the football and make things happen on the ground with their legs. But in my opinion, Lamar Jackson is the better quarterback than Josh Allen. Not only does he have 2 MVPs to Josh Allen's no MVPs, but he has a better record overall compared to Josh Allen. Since Lamar has been the starter in Baltimore, he's 58-19. That's the second best win-loss record in the NFL, only second to Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen is 63-30, and Lamar has led Baltimore to the NFL's best record, his 2 MVP seasons, last season and 2019, and they also had the 1 seed twice. And the main reason why Josh Allen has more playoff wins than Lamar, he's 5-5 in the postseason, Lamar is 2-5, is because Josh Allen gets the luxury of playing in the wild card round, which he normally always ends up winning, which boosts his playoff resume. Lamar, with him not having to play in the wild card round 2 times because of the Ravens getting home field advantage, not having to play in the first round, Lamar, he has less playoff wins because Josh Allen has played in more wild card matchups. So, of course, Josh Allen's playoff wins are going to be a little bit more oversaturated compared to Lamar's. But outside of the wild card round, Josh Allen hasn't done shit. The last time Buffalo went to the AFC Championship was several years ago. We say Lamar can't win in the playoffs, but he just took Baltimore to the conference championship game. And let's not act like Josh Allen has never had bad playoff games. As a matter of fact, I remember 2 years ago, the Buffalo Bills got embarrassed by Joe Burrow in Cincinnati in the divisional round. So if we're going to harp on Lamar Jackson for having an off game against Kansas City, we got to have that same energy when it comes to Josh Allen's poor playoff performances. And the big thing to me that makes Lamar a better QB than Josh Allen is that he's more efficient as a passer than what Josh Allen is. Lamar has had one of the best touchdown to interception ratios since he's entered the league. He has 125 passing touchdowns to only 45 interceptions. Meanwhile, Josh Allen, on the other hand, he has led the NFL in turnovers a year ago, and he was second in the NFL in turnovers right behind Sam Howell last year. And he has a touchdown INT ratio of 167-75. When you're looking at a quarterback who you can trust to take care of the football, especially late in games, Lamar Jackson is your guy. I don't trust Josh Allen in big games as much as what I trust Lamar because Josh Allen is too volatile. There are games when Josh Allen can have 4 or 5 turnovers and just absolutely cost you a ball game. Lamar doesn't have those same kind of performances. I mean, there was a wild card game 3 years ago when the Bills were playing against the Miami Dolphins without Tua at quarterback. They had Skylar Thompson. They got out to a big lead, and then all of a sudden, Josh Allen just started imploding on himself, turning the football over, and he helped the Dolphins get right back into the game. If Tua would have played, Buffalo easily would have got sent home in the first round that year. Lamar is more efficient, more accomplished, and he has been way more dominant than what Josh Allen has been in the NFL. I think that there is a pretty small gap between Lamar and Josh Allen, but although the gap is small, it still is a pretty clear indicator of who is the better QB. And that has to be Lamarvelous. You don't just win 2 MVPs, become a 2-time first pro or first team all-pro selection to Josh Allen not having any of those accomplishments if you're not the better quarterback. There's a reason why Lamar has 2 MVPs and Josh Allen has none. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson has the second best win-loss record in the league. That's because that he's just more overall efficient than what Josh Allen is. We can criticize Lamar for not being that polished as a passer compared to Josh Allen, but who has the higher completion percentage? Lamar. Lamar, for his career, is completing 64% of his passes. Josh Allen is completing 64% of his passes. Although that's, a pretty small difference, Lamar is still the overall more efficient quarterback than what Josh Allen is. You can say Josh Allen plays better against Kansas City, but what does he have to show for that? Because they've never beat Kansas City in the playoffs. Neither has Lamar Jackson. So to me, if your whole argument of why Josh Allen is better than Lamar's because he has played better against Kansas City in the playoffs than LJ, that's a moot point. Because it doesn't matter how well you play if your team still doesn't get the win. And in the biggest moments against Kansas City in the fourth quarter, Josh Allen always fails to deliver. The same problem that Lamar Jackson had when the Ravens lost to Kansas City in the AFC Championship. He couldn't make the big throws in the big moments in the fourth quarter. But if you take away the whole Josh Allen is better than Lamar in the playoffs argument, Lamar just clears Josh Allen in every category. And the playoff success is really overrated to me because Lamar hasn't played in as many wildcard games as what Josh Allen has. If Lamar was playing in a wildcard round and he wasn't leading the Ravens to having the best record in the AFC, then of course he would have a better win-loss record in the playoffs because you're playing more easier competition in a wildcard round. But Lamar has had more postseason success recently than Josh Allen. He just went to the AFC Championship last year. That's a game away from making it to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen hasn't been that close to a Super Bowl in years. So I'm taking Lamar over Josh Allen. I do believe that the gap between these two dudes is small, but Lamar is more efficient, takes better care of the football, and he's just a better overall quarterback to me than what Josh Allen is. It's just that Josh Allen gets put over Lamar because he has more playoff wins. But you say the regular season doesn't matter that much because you expect Lamar to play at a high level. But yet, if it doesn't matter, how has Lamar led Baltimore to the NFL's best record 2 times in his NFL career up to this point? Josh Allen hasn't been able to do that. If Buffalo was able to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs and they got a first round bye, then maybe their road to the Super Bowl would be a lot more easier than what it has been for them in prior years. You can't knock Lamar for his regular season success when that has had a tremendous impact on what the Ravens have been able to do in the postseason with getting that number 1 seed and that home field advantage. So I'm taking Lamar over Josh Allen. Like I said, I don't think the gap between these two dudes is big, but Lamar has accomplished more up to this point in his career than what Josh Allen has. I was watching the Dallas Cowboys preseason opener against the Rams, and I was really excited to watch Trey Lance play. I wanted to see if he actually could show a few glimpses of maybe being the future successor at quarterback to Dak Prescott. But it's pretty evident the more you watch Trey Lance, the more evident it is that this dude should be playing in the UFL, and he doesn't have what it takes to be a quarterback in the NFL. He struggles to read defenses. His accuracy is really bad. He has bad ball placement. The big thing with Trey Lance right now is that he's going into his 4th season in the league, and he still is very inexperienced, very raw as a quarterback. That tells me that Instead of you playing in the NFL, wasting a roster spot, you should be in the UFL where you can get developed, play against lesser competition, and then maybe in 2 or 3 years, you'll be NFL ready then. But if you are at this stage of your career on your second team and the big argument for you is that you still need more time to develop, you're not ready. You were a former first-round pick. The 49ers traded up the farm to get you. And yeah, you've been held back due to some injury concerns, but you need to show some progress. And no progress has been made from Trey Lance. Cooper Rush in only one drive did way more than what Trey Lance did playing the whole entire game after Cooper Rush came out. I mean, if you're Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones, what's the use of keeping Trey Lance around when you could get a better third-string quarterback and then you could just move on from him? Because you're not going to get the future at quarterback if you are banking on Trey Lance to end up just finding a way to figure it out and reach his potential. He does have a good arm. He is a pretty good athlete. But when he was coming out of North Dakota State, the dude didn't really play that much there. And then the lone game that he played his final season, he struggled. There's not much film on this dude when he was coming out of college. He wasn't really that good as a quarterback in high school. As a matter of fact, there were a good amount of schools that wanted him to play tight end. The more you watch Trey Lance, the more clear it is that he just isn't an NFL caliber quarterback. The Trey Lance fan club, which is still pretty big out there, is starting to lesser by the numbers every day. Because you can only make so many excuses for this dude. He got drafted to the best situation possible. Everybody says how anybody in Kyle Shanahan's offense at quarterback always produces. Well, why didn't Trey Lance produce? Why is he the only exception? Why did he fail? He doesn't throw with anticipation. He doesn't have a good feel for pressure inside of the pocket. I mean, at this point, what is there to be encouraged about when you watch Trey Lance play in these preseason games? Because I didn't see anything from his performance against the Rams that screamed to me, oh yeah, he definitely could be the potential successor to Dak Prescott at quarterback for Dallas. If Jerry Jones' plan was to move on from Dak and go with Trey Lance, he definitely needs to reconsider that thing, and he probably needs to extend Dak Prescott because Trey Lance just hasn't developed to a point where he should be given the keys to the Lamborghini. If anything, he should get demoted to the UFL, get some meaningful in-game experience, and get some good development because he just isn't ready to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And even when he was healthy with the 49ers, in those games that he started for San Fran, he wasn't impressive, and the offense struggled. He got replaced by the last pick of the draft in Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy was miles better in his first game ever against the Miami Dolphins, who he was a fourth stringer, by the way. Didn't have no meaningful reps that week with the first string offense, just came off the bench, and ever since then, he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Trey Lance, all people seem to do is make excuses for him instead of giving examples of why he still deserves an opportunity to compete for a starting job. At this point, Trey Lance, at best, is going to be a really good backup. Maybe you bring him in for some gadget plays where you let him run wildcat quarterback, get kind of tricky with him. Maybe you want to do a couple of, triple passes behind the line of scrimmage where Trey Lance throws it to the running back behind the line of scrimmage and the running back tosses it back to Trey Lance, and he either throws the football for a big play downfield or he makes some things happen with his legs. He is really athletic. He does have the ability to make guys miss. He does have a good amount of elusiveness, but he just doesn't read the field well, and he just doesn't have the accuracy and the anticipation that you need at this level to thrive as a quarterback. The Trey Lance experiment in Dallas is pretty much over, in my opinion, and he should be playing in the UFL. There's been a lot of hype around Anthony Richardson going into this season. He's going into year 2 under Shane Steichen, who did a fantastic job of developing Jalen Hurts that year. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was an MVP finalist that year. Prior to his time being the OC in Philadelphia, he was a major part in helping Justin Herbert have the big-time rookie season that he did in 2020. Everywhere Shane Steichen has been, he's done a great job of working with the quarterbacks. But in Indianapolis, although Shane Steichen is a really good offensive mind and you trust that he can develop Anthony Richardson to reach his potential, there still is some ways to go until Anthony Richardson reaches that level where he should actually be an MVP consideration going into the season. This year, I don't see it with the Anthony Richardson hype train. I really don't. I understand the Cam Newton comparisons. He's 6'4", 255, running 4.43. Nobody in the open field on defense is going to want to tackle this dude. But to win in the NFL, you got to be able to throw the football at a high level, and I don't believe Anthony Richardson is going to be able to do that this year. The biggest concern that most people had with Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida was that he didn't have a lot of experience. So his rookie season, how many games he started was going to be really pivotal to how his development was going to go. He's one of those dudes that he's only going to get better with getting more in-game action, getting more experience. And he didn't get that in his rookie season because it got cut short due to that shoulder injury. Now you go into year 2 and you look at his first preseason game, only though he played 2 drives, there was really nothing impressive from it. As a matter of fact, I came away from watching Anthony Richardson's preseason game last week really concerned because he still struggles to make the layup throws. You know, the 4-yard throws where you just throw it to the guy as soon as you get the football in your hands after the snap. He doesn't play well within rhythm. He still looks uncomfortable in the pocket. Yeah, he is willing to take a big hit to make a big throw downfield, but the accuracy and timing is still severely lacking with Anthony Richardson in year 2. And I don't see him taking Indianapolis to the playoffs this year. Now, you can counter that point if you're a Colts fan and say, well, JT, we came close to making it to the playoffs last year with Gardner Minshew, and Anthony Richardson is a better QB than Gardner Minshew, right? I got to push back against that. As a overall quarterback, Anthony Richardson is better than Gardner Minshew because of how good of an athlete he is in the arm strength. But as a passer, Gardner Minshew is still levels above of what Anthony Richardson is right now. And I'm not saying that Anthony Richardson is going to be garbage this year, but he's going to be a roller coaster ride. You're going to have some good games where he ends up throwing for 300 yards, has 3 touchdowns through the air and a couple on the ground. But you're also going to have some games where maybe he goes 11 of 29 for 144 passing yards, 1 touchdown and 3 picks. He has a lot of room to grow as a quarterback. And I see him slowing down Indianapolis this year. Indianapolis, with how inconsistent Anthony Richardson is going to be at quarterback this year, they're not going to be as good as what they were last year. And the thing with Anthony Richardson is that he definitely could end up getting better throughout the season, but with him still being so raw, getting most of his rookie season taken away from him, that set back his development. He didn't play that much at Florida. He got injured there. So that also hindered his development in college. And now you kind of see the same problems transpiring with his NFL career. You have concerns about just how efficient as a passer that he's going to become. And you also have concerns about his durability. And I like Anthony Richardson. I'm a huge fan of his. I still believe that he can end up being developed into a great quarterback. But right now this season, I just don't see it with him. I really believe that he's still going to have a lot of growing pains. And year 2 for him should kind of be treated still as his rookie season, because he's yet to play a full season at any level, at Florida and at the NFL level. So I get the Anthony Richardson hype train when you look at the dude and you think about the measurables and the athleticism. Oh yeah, it's easy to compare him to Cam Newton. But right now, he still is way too inexperienced and hasn't shown enough development for me to have enough trust to have Indianapolis making it to the postseason. The only way the Colts make it to the playoffs this year is if they just go complete vintage Baltimore Ravens, like what they did with Lamar Jackson, and they just design the offense tailored around Anthony Richardson's running ability. Because the dude is like Derrick Henry meets Incredible Hulk at quarterback. It definitely is going to be hard to stop this offense when they can get Anthony Richardson going on the ground, and you couple that with Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. That's one of the scariest backfields in the NFL. But when you force Indianapolis to have to put the ball in the air and you're asking AR to win you games throwing the football 25 plus, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage due to how raw he is as a quarterback. There are a lot of issues that he had coming out of Florida that he still hasn't really improved at. The accuracy still isn't that good in the short intermediate areas of the field. He still doesn't have that good of a feel for pass rushers coming at him inside of the pocket. This is still somebody who should be viewed as a rookie because he is very inexperienced, and that's going to hurt him. If there was a year for Anthony Richardson to break out and have an MVP caliber season, I don't see it this year. I see it in year 3 or year 4 when he can actually get some more games under his belt, he can get some more experience, and he can actually get better with every game that he plays. But you're not going to be improved when you only play 4 or 5 games in year 1. It doesn't matter how much work you put in the offseason for a dude like Anthony Richardson. He has to get adjusted to the game speed, and it takes a while to get acclimated to the NFL. So I still view him as a rookie, despite what the label says. This is his second season. He didn't play the full season last year. So therefore, he still is very inexperienced. And that's why the Colts are not going to go that far with him at quarterback this year. You got to be able to throw the football at a high level. The AFC South is not going to be an easy division this year, especially if Will Levis ends up improving. I just don't see it with the Anthony Richardson hype this year. And for all of you guys that are drafting him high in your fantasy football leagues, you're making a really risky decision, because he could end up losing you your fantasy leagues due to how inconsistent his play is going to be this year. The expectations for the Houston Texans are very high going into this season. They had a great offseason. You get Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Danielle Hunter, and CJ Stroud is in ascension mode right now. This is his second season. And you think about just how good he was as a rookie. At one point, he was a legitimate MVP candidate. So think about how good CJ Stroud could be this year with a better supporting cast, an improved offensive line, and the defense that should be top 10, maybe top 5 this year. Houston has enough to stop the Kansas City Chiefs from being able to three-peat this year. And I don't think that they're going to be unable to handle the high expectations that people have for them this year. The AFC South, to me, there really isn't a lot of competition for the division title this year. Houston should very well win this division for the second straight year in a row. Jacksonville still has some concerns with their offensive coordinator, their offensive line. I don't see Jacksonville being able to win the South this year. At best, I see the Jags being a 10-win team. Houston has the ability to not just win the AFC South, but they potentially could be in the conversation to have a first-round bye come playoff time because they could end up winning the 1 seed. They don't really have any big weaknesses on their roster this year outside of the question mark around their offensive line. You had a lot of guys that went down with injuries last year on that unit. And plus, even with the guys that are coming back healthy, you don't know just how good they're going to be as starters. Their interior offensive line still is a major concern, even with guys coming back healthy. But if they get offensive line play that is above average this year, this team could go very far in the postseason. CJ Stroud has a different mentality than what Lamar and Josh Allen have. You know, he's very calm, composed, and relaxed. It seems like the moments in games never become too big for him. And he's somebody that you can trust late in the fourth quarter against Patrick Mahomes to deliver a game-winning drive to get Houston to the next round of the playoffs. DeMeco Ryans is one of the best up-and-coming young head coaches. There are a lot of offensive-minded head coaches, so when you can find a defensive-minded coach that's very good, that's very promising when you think about the young quarterback that they have down there in Houston in CJ Stroud, because defensive-minded coaches, they often struggle to have success because they can't get the quarterback position figured out. DeMeco Ryans doesn't have the same problem that Antonio Pierce and Mike Tomlin have right now. So you know the defense is going to be good because that's the strength of DeMeco Ryans. And with you retaining offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, it's hard to imagine CJ Stroud having a sophomore slump. And I never feel like the external factors that have nothing to do with play on the field hinder a team from how successful they're going to be. I don't think teams end up disappointing because they had too much pressure on them. The expectations were too high and they can't handle them. The normal reason for why teams disappoint is because they got a couple of injuries or maybe they weren't as good as what we initially thought they were going to be going into said season. Houston, with how consistent CJ Stroud was from week 1 to the final week of last year, there's nothing to me that I have anything to worry about with him if I'm Houston. And if I'm a fan of the Houston Texans, not only is this team good enough to make a deep playoff run, but they're good enough to win it all. There are only about 5-6 teams this year that have a legitimate shot at being able to win the Super Bowl, and the Houston Texans are one of them. You got a loaded secondary. You're going to have a really nasty pass rush. We've seen what Danielle Hunter has been doing in the preseason and in training camp. And think about Will Anderson. He's going into year 2 as well. And you think about how good CJ Stroud was, it's easy to overlook how good Will Anderson was because he also was drafted in the first round along with CJ Stroud in last year's draft. And he has potential to be a game-changing kind of player. And when you think about how good this pass rush duo can be between Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, it's going to be really hard to move the ball on this Houston defense, and it's going to be hard to stop Houston's offense from putting a bunch of points on the board. This is the most deadliest receiving core in the NFL. You got 2 guys in Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell who are amongst the best route runners in the league and create a lot of separation. Every time CJ Stroud drops back to throw, at least one of those dudes are going to be open. And you got Nico Collins, who is emerging as one of the best deep ball receivers in the game. He can catch those 50-50 balls. He can also win those one-on-one matchups in the red zone. And Joe Mixon is an upgrade at running back from what you had in Devin Singletary. Houston should definitely be able to live up to the hype this year. there are always some teams that end up rebuilding and they end up getting to the point where now you expect them to make a run in the playoffs where people kind of start to question if they can live up to the hype. Similar to the Detroit Lions last year, there were a small group of fans who were telling me in the comment section that I was overhyping Detroit and that they never were going to be able to make a deep postseason run because they're the Detroit Lions. Houston, with them not having a great past based off how dark things have been down there the past couple of years, people are using that same argument that they made against the Detroit Lions. The Lions are still the same old Lions. The Texans are still the same old Texans. That's not true. History doesn't define what you are as a football team because every year is different. The same Houston team that you think of last year is not the same Texans team that you're going to see this year. This team is deep at every position. You got CJ Stroud, who already, in my eyes, is a top 5 quarterback. I get nightmares thinking about how better he could be this year. Because how better can you get when you're already an elite quarterback and you're already top 5 at your position only 1 year into your career? You mean to tell me that he potentially could challenge Patrick Mahomes for the title of being the best quarterback in the game? He has the ability and the upside to do so this year. I got CJ Stroud winning MVP. I don't see how you don't win MVP when you're throwing the Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz, and you got Joe Mixon in the backfield. This is one of the most complete teams in the NFL when it comes to talent, top to bottom at every position, and they also have a lot of depth with great coaching. The recipe that you need to win in the playoffs, make it to a Super Bowl, the Houston Texans have all the ingredients to cook up a potential Super Bowl run this season. So I definitely believe that the hype for the Houston Texans is more than justified. If you don't see Houston as a 10-win team, then I just got to call you a hater. Because Houston is one of the best teams entering this upcoming NFL season. Before we move on to the college football section of this live, shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to my guy, Kate Roan. Shout out to my guy, JR Black. He says Jay Allen and Lamar Jackson are the same player, elite athletes, but mid QB passers. Both trust the legs more than their arms. Both got to add rushing yards to make their stats look good. Both suck in the postseason. Shout out to my guy, M. Sparks. Shout out to my guy, Kate Roan. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. If you're listening on X and YouTube, hit that like button. Smash the share button. Share this live stream with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. Subscribe and follow. If you're listening on podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, give us a 5-star review. If you're enjoying this episode, greatly helps us out a lot. It's a free way to support the channel and the pod. Follow us on Instagram at JTSports_ and on X at JTSports__. Okay, now, on August 31st, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, there's a Category 5 hurricane coming to the swamp, and that is Miami football. I've been so tired of going back and forth with these Florida Gator fans who think that just because they're playing at home in the swamp, that just gives them some kind of shield of invincibility. Let me tell y'all guys something. This Miami Hurricanes team this year is about to be unlike any past Miami team that you've seen in the past. Disregard all of the years Miami fans have said the U is finally going to be back. 2024 is the year that Miami makes their big run. They have the better team in this game all across the board. And it's not me being biased. If you go and you actually do your research, Miami has out-recruited Florida every year Mario Cristobal has been in South Beach. And Florida hasn't even had a top 10 recruiting class under Billy Napier. Miami has had several top 10 classes. Not only have they done a good job of recruiting, but they've also have utilized the transfer portal at a way higher level than what Florida has. You bring in Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, two of the best players out of the portal at their respective positions. Everybody wanted Cam Ward at quarterback. He is not going to be new to playing in this kind of hostile environment. The Pac-12 was at its all-time best last season. He had a fantastic game early last year against Oregon State when he outplayed and outclassed DJ Uiagalelei. And think about how efficient Cam Ward was at Washington State despite not having that good of a team around him. You can't name a single NFL wide receiver that Cameron Ward was throwing the football to last year. Now down at Miami, he has about 3-4 NFL caliber wide receivers that he's going to be throwing the football to this year, and he's going to have a good offensive line. Damian Martinez, he's going to expose Florida's defense. Florida's defense last year, not only did they suck at stopping the pass, but they couldn't stop the run as well. They were 88th in the nation in rushing yards per game allowed. With how much talent Miami has compared to Florida, it's a major reason why this game should be won by Miami by at least 10 points. If this is a game that ends up being close, I would be really surprised. Because Miami should at least be able to run away with this game once we reach the fourth quarter because they have more depth and they have more talent on their roster top to bottom. Mario Cristobal, for the people that like to say, well, you harp on Billy Napier not being that good as a coach, Mario Cristobal isn't even better than Billy Napier. I get really pissed off when people try to say that Mario Cristobal and Billy Napier are in the same class, because they're not. Mario Cristobal has won in the Power 4 conference. He's won the conference title before when he was in the Pac-12. He's won big road games on the road before as well. Oregon in 2021 went on the road and beat Ohio State in Columbus when they were the third-ranked team in the nation. Billy Napier's resume doesn't even sniff what Mario Cristobal has done. Florida's coaching staff has a lot of question marks. Their defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong, in his first season calling plays down in Gainesville last year, they sucked at everything. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. They gave up big play after big play due to blown coverages in the secondary. Miami's coaching staff has proven a lot more than what Florida's coaching staff has. At least Miami went to a bowl game last year. Florida didn't go bowling last year. And it doesn't matter if you didn't have that much talent to work with. Florida is never going to be bad enough talent-wise where not winning 6 games is excusable. It's never acceptable to win less than 6 games coaching at Miami or Florida, no matter how bad the roster is, because the roster is always good enough to get you to at least a 500 record. And Florida's defense, I think they're in major trouble in this game. Their pass rush is a huge concern. They lost their leading pass rusher to Ole Miss in the portal. We don't know how effective they're going to be getting pressure consistently on Cam Ward. They also struggled at stopping the run last year. Miami's offensive line is one of the best, not only in the ACC, but in all of college football. Mario Cristobal, being a former offensive lineman, he specializes in being able to get the most out of the offensive line play. Florida's offensive line is one of the biggest question marks that they have as a team going into this season. And when you compare Miami's defensive line to Florida's defensive line, there's a really huge gap between the two. Miami, it seemed like they invested a lot of resources in the portal to making sure that they could get the best defensive lineman possible. You got Tyler Barron from Tennessee. He was one of the better pass rushers in the SEC last year. You got a lot of guys in depth on the interior of that defensive line that not only are going to be good starters, but you also have good rotational pieces, guys that can come in and be good in short yardage situations against the run, and also can be good situational pass rushers. Florida doesn't have that kind of depth on their defensive line as compared to what the Hurricanes have. And Miami's defensive line, they should wreck Florida up front. Florida's offensive line is not that good. They are replacing a lot of production on that unit from last year's squad, and a lot of people question if they even have the pieces for that offensive line to be somewhat decent. It also doesn't help that Florida lost one of their best players on offense in Montrell Johnson, who got injured early into fall camp. He's going to be unable to suit up in this game. Yes, Florida is really deep at running back. Treyon Webb, who comes from the 904. I'm always going to give my 904 brethren the benefit of a doubt, but let's not act like losing Montrell Johnson is just going to be something that Florida can just overlook and scoff over. Florida's game plan is that you got to be able to be balanced. You know Miami's going to be able to run the football. They're going to be able to throw the football based off how bad Florida's secondary was last year. Yes, they did bring in some guys in the transfer portal to improve that, and you can expect some improvement year two under Austin Armstrong, but there's no guarantee that Florida's secondary is going to be improved this year compared to what it was last year. You know that Miami is going to have a good defense because this defense was good last year. They hired a new defensive coordinator from Marshall. Marshall had one of college football's most efficient pass defenses in terms of how good they were in pass coverage and how well they were able to get after the quarterback. This game obviously screams Miami's going to win by at least 10 points or more, and they're easily going to cover that 2.5 point spread that they're favored to win by. Playing in the swamp is not easy. You think about the conditions, the humidity, but Miami's a Florida team. It's not like you're going up against Utah when you upset Utah week one a few years back, because Utah wasn't used to the kind of conditions that comes with playing in the swamp. Miami is. Playing at Florida doesn't have the same prestige that it used to back in 2008 and 2009 when you had the glory days going on when Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer were winning championships together. Florida is not what it used to be. Playing at Florida isn't as tough now in 2024 as what it used to be decades ago. People make it seem like, oh, well, Florida's playing at home. Who gives a crap if they're playing at home? You make it seem like Florida hasn't lost at home before. They were losing home games last year. Y'all make it seem like Florida's on a 5-game home win streak, man. They are definitely more than beatable at home in the swamp. I'm tired of people making it seem like Miami has a chance to get upset by Florida because they're playing on the road. Who cares? It's the swamp. Florida ain't good at home like that anymore. I mean, come on. Some of y'all are going off stereotypes instead of going off who's the better team. If you're a Florida fan, you can't tell me that the Gators are a more talented team than Miami when we've out-recruited you every year under Mario Cristobal, and we've out-portaled you every year as well. Y'all could even make it to a bowl game last year, for crying out loud. Y'all had 13 men on the field. Mario Cristobal definitely messed up against Georgia Tech. But Billy Napier has done way more things that have been way more outrageous compared to Mario Cristobal. Let's not try to make it seem like a dude who's won a Pac-12 championship in the Rose Bowl, has had multiple double-digit winning seasons at the Power 4 level, is on the same tier as a guy who's coaching for his life this year. I mean, let's just stop the crap. Miami is going to smoke Florida. And I really can't wait for this game to get played because I'm tired of people trying to make it seem like this Miami team is the same team that has fallen victim to the offseason hype machine in the past. And I can't wait for August 31st, 3:30 p.m. ABC to roll around because I can't wait for the Miami to smack Florida back into reality and smack this program back into the irrelevant hole that it's been for the last 5 years. Playing in the swamp is not as tough now as what it used to be decades ago. And this is not the same Miami team that you've seen underachieve in years prior. August 31st cannot come soon enough, man. I'm so ready for this game because so many people are about to have a shocked look in their face when Miami rolls into the swamp and that hurricane just absolutely dismantles the Gators. And we actually are going to do a lot of you Florida fans a favor because we're going to speed up the clock in the process of Billy Napier, who's not a good coach, who's going to get fired this year. You should want us to win this game because we're going to help him get fired a lot faster. Miami is going to smoke Florida. I don't expect this game to be close. I got Miami winning 34-17 in this game. Miami is a truly way better team than what they've been in the last couple of decades. This is not a good Florida team because they're not well coached. They're not disciplined. They had 13 men on the field in one game that I watched last year. And you mean to tell me that Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal are on the same level? Let's be real. Miami should smoke Florida week 1. And I can't wait for it to happen because I'm tired of all you Florida fans talking all this crap on X, Facebook, Instagram. I'm just ready for these pads to come on, these chin straps to get buckled up, and I'm ready for the Hurricanes to smack Florida back into the hellhole that they deserve to be because they're not what they used to be back in 2008 and 2009 under Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer. I can't wait for this game to get played, man. Man, y'all got me fired up tonight. Y'all really do. Because I've been going back and forth with these Florida fans on social media all offseason long, and they think that their team is better than what they're actually going to be this year. There's no way in hell that Florida is going to make it to a bowl game, having the toughest schedule in conference football with one of the worst coaches in the Power Four. Talent has never been an issue for Florida. The issue with Florida has been that they've had terrible coaching. Billy Napier is still the head coach. Stop trying to ignore what Mario Cristobal did just because it was the Pac-12. You put Florida in last year's Pac-12, I still don't think they make it to a bowl game. I really don't. I really don't get why Florida fans actually believe that they can win this game outside the fact that they're playing in a swamp. Who gives a damn if you're playing in a swamp, man? You act like you've never lost in the swamp before. You got your ass kicked out home several times last year. When August 31st rolls around, I hope you Florida fans are here. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to be live streaming the game and I'm going to be here right after. The talk my stuff, man, because y'all been talking way too much noise for me this year. August 31st, when them pads come on and those chin straps get buckled up, you better be ready for that Category 5 hurricane that's about to come through Gainesville, Florida. Because I promise you, the carnage that you're going to see after this game is going to look really ugly for Florida football. I promise you. August 31st. We're only 2 weeks away, people. Ooh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. Now, there's a team in the ACC this year that is going really under the radar. And start that over. There's a team in the ACC this year that isn't being talked about enough when it comes to their chances to make it to the college football playoffs this year. And it's not Miami. It's not Florida State. It's not Clemson. The team that I'm talking about are the Virginia Tech Hokies. Yes, I'm talking about Virginia Tech, people. You may not think that Virginia Tech and playoffs belong together, but this season, Virginia Tech could be what last year's Missouri team was. They are top 15 in the nation going into this year and returning production. They returned 95% of their production from last year on offense, and they returned 77% of their production from last year on defense. Offensively, you got the same quarterback in Kyron Jones, the same offensive line, and mostly the same group of wide receivers coming back. So you should see a team that should be way better at the start of this year compared to what they were last year, because you were having some inconsistency with your quarterback play. And then once you made the move to start Kyron Jones and he started to get settled in, he improved really well throughout last year. And if Kyron Jones can take another big step this year in his improvement, this is a team that is good enough to win the ACC this year. Florida State is not the team that a lot of people think they are. DJU, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyron Jones ends up being better than him this season. Kyron Jones has a great arm. He's a way better athlete than what DJU is. And if that accuracy can improve with how good their offensive line and their receivers are going to be this year, this is going to be a really hard offense to stop, because it's going to be pick your poison. They can beat you through the air, or they could beat you on the ground. And their defense was already playing at a high level last year. Now, this is a defense that could go from good to elite because of what they returned and what they brought in from the transfer portal. You got more talent on the defensive line. You're going to be better at getting after the quarterback. You got some solid linebackers and really good defensive backs in that secondary. I'm really high on Virginia Tech this year. This is a team that should be in the AP top 25, which they're not. They put NC State over them. They got Iowa over Virginia Tech. This is a team that is definitely good enough to not just win the ACC, but to crash the college football playoff party. You see, every year we have a team that always comes out of nowhere where people had low expectations for them, or they didn't expect them to be good as what they actually were that year. And Virginia Tech is one of those teams. They got a really promising head coach and Brent Pry, who's entering his third year with the program. And normally, when you have a coach entering their third year and they return this amount of experience and talent, normally their teams end up taking a giant leap. Think about Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri last year. They had a lot of returning production on offense and defense, and you saw how many games they won last year. Virginia Tech looks ideally similar to what Missouri was in 2023. And they don't have a hard schedule. Their toughest games are against Rutgers, Miami, and Clemson late in the year. They could go into that road game 4-0 against Miami, because their first couple of games are against Vandy, Marshall, Old Dominion, and Rutgers. Now, Rutgers is not going to be an easy game, because Rutgers is a really dangerous team, especially if they get good quarterback play. But that's definitely a game that Virginia Tech should be able to take care of business. And you could beat Miami too. And this is coming from a Miami Hurricane fan, because Miami is always known to drop games that they should win, but they end up not being able to, because of, for whatever reason, the coaching just ends up having some random lapses late in games, or the team just underperforms. They overlook their opponent. And if you could beat Miami, then you definitely have a great shot of being able to beat Clemson, especially with you maybe being undefeated going into that game and having the ability to host a home game against Clemson. Kind of puts that game in your favor. So at best, Virginia Tech could be 11-1, be an ACC champion, and get an auto bid into the 12-team college football playoffs, or they could go 10-2. Let's say they beat Miami and they beat Clemson. Those wins are resume boosters. It doesn't matter if you lost to a few inferior opponents, if your two biggest games of the year you were able to win against Clemson and Miami, who both should be ranked inside of the college football playoff rankings, and that should boost the resume because they're going to have a good strength of schedule. I am really high on Virginia Tech this year. Not only do I see them as a playoff team, but I have them going to the ACC Conference Championship game and losing to Miami. Virginia Tech is being incredibly overlooked, and I thought that more people were high on them until the AP polls started coming out, and I didn't see Virginia Tech nowhere to be found. Like, Iowa should not be ranked above Virginia Tech, and neither should NC State or even Kansas. There's more to be confident about with Virginia Tech than there is to be confident about with NC State and some of the other teams that are getting more love than what Virginia Tech is getting. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I get up on out of here is this. Well, we got a few more things to talk about. The biggest storyline for USC football going into this season is their defense. We know that this defense last year was unwatchable under former defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, and it was the main reason why 2023 was a massive failure for Lincoln Riley. So what did Lincoln Riley do to address the looming problems that he's had on defense? Well, he's fired Alex Grinch, and you replace him with Deanne Lynn along with a retooled defensive coaching staff. Deanne Lynn is going to be the big reason why you see a different defense this year that's massively improved compared to what you saw last year. And one season at UCLA, Deanne Lynn took the Bruins from being one of the worst defenses in college football to a top 15 unit in the span of 1 year. They were 15th in points per game allowed. They were second against the run, and they were really good against the pass. And they also were outstanding at forcing takeaways, and they played great situational football. They could get off the field on third downs, and they could stop you from scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Just with you hiring Deanne Lynn, your defense is already improved because you're going to have a head coach that, if he was able to succeed at UCLA with way less talent than what he's going to have at USC, imagine how good this defense is going to be with him having more talent to work with. There are things from a coaching standpoint that are going to be fixed with Deanne Lynn calling the plays, because you're going to have guys that are going to be in better position. You're going to have better communication in the secondary, so you're not going to see as many blown coverages as what you've seen last year under Alex Grinch. With this being a better coached team, they're going to have less errors due to just being out of position. They're going to be more disciplined. You're going to be bigger, faster, and stronger on the defensive line. What killed USC last year was mostly due to how small they were on the line of scrimmage on the defensive line. You could run the football at will on them, and they couldn't do anything about it because they didn't have a lot of big bodies. Well, the Trojans put a lot of emphasis this offseason on not only getting stronger, but getting bigger. Their defensive line has gained a combined total of over 340 pounds throughout the offseason. Dan Lynn has an NFL background. His father, Anthony Lynn, was a former head coach for the LA Chargers. This dude is going to run an NFL-style defense, and he knows how to build a physical, tough defense and the perfect defense that you need to be able to have success in the Big Ten. And with this being a bigger, more physical defensive line, it's going to be way harder to run against this front in 2024 as compared to 2023. Now, the strength of this team is going to be in the secondary. You got a few guys from UCLA like Kamari Ramsey and John Humphrey who followed Deanne Lynn from UCLA to USC. And you also got a guy in Greedy Vance from Florida State who has a lot of upside to become one of the better corners in the Big Ten. Your defensive line although you are lacking talent in certain areas on that front, you still do have Bear Alexander, one of the better interior defensive linemen in college football. Jabeel Muhammad, he was playing at a pretty high level for the first half of last year, and then he just fell off in the second half of last season. You got Nate Clifton, who was a transfer from Vanderbilt. He had 5.5 sacks last year. Cameron Fountain could be a true freshman who could have a big impact on this team right away. He was a 4-star from the 2024 recruiting cycle, and he was one of the better defensive linemen from that recruiting class. And if you end up getting good play out of him, you should have more than enough to have a top 50 defense. USC doesn't need to have elite defense to win in the Big Ten. All they need is for their defense to be above average, and that's good enough for them to win 9-10 games, because the Big Ten doesn't know shit about offense. Iowa went to the Big Ten championship last year, and their defensive special teams scored more points than what their offense did. Penn State doesn't have the talent at receiver that USC does. The Big Ten may be a great conference when it comes to dominant rushing attacks, physical play, and good defense, but they don't know anything about what it means to have explosive offense. Outside of Ohio State, no other team in the Big Ten the last couple of years has had the kind of offense that they're about to see out of USC and Lincoln Riley this season. This is going to be a massively improved defense this year due to the impact of hiring D'Anton Lynn and with the revamped coaching staff that they have. So you guys keep overlooking the changes that Lincoln Riley has made to this defense, and the Trojans are about to shock a lot of you guys this year because of how massively improved they're going to be on the defensive side of the football. And when this defense ends up improving, you can definitely expect D'Anton Lynn to be in the running for being a finalist for the Jim Boros Award, which goes to college football's top assistant coach. He should be in that conversation. If you can transform UCLA from being one of the worst defenses in college football to a top 15 unit in a span of 1 year, you can do that anywhere, to me, because that shows that your coaches respond well, your players respond well to your coaching. You know how to put guys in positions to succeed. I will be really surprised if we see USC's defensive struggles carry on into this year. This should be a vastly improved unit as compared to what we've seen under Lincoln Riley teams in the past, because he's had the same defensive coordinator every year he's been a head coach. This is the first year ever that he won't have Alex Grinch calling his defense. The problem wasn't Lincoln Riley doesn't know defense. The problem was he refused to get rid of the biggest cancer to his success, which was Alex Grinch. So I expect USC to have a really good defense this year that's going to be vastly improved to what we've seen last year and the year prior. Now, one more thing I want to talk about before I get up on out of here. I want to talk about Tennessee football, man, because this is a really scary team going into this year. They could win 9 to 11 games and possibly win the entire SEC, make it to the SEC championship, maybe knock off Georgia, Alabama, whoever, because this is one of the more complete teams that the Vols have had in recent memory. With Nico Iamaleava at quarterback, your offense is going to be massively upgraded, and they're going to be massively improved from what they were last year, because remember, 2023 was a step down offensively in production from what they did in 2022 when they had pretty much the nation's best offense with Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton wasn't bad, but he was inaccurate. He really couldn't read defenses. With Nico Iamaleava taking over at center or underneath center, you're going to have somebody that not only is going to be more accurate and more efficient at quarterback for you, but you're also going to have a guy that has the athletic ability to do a lot on the ground as compared to Joe Milton. Joe Milton isn't the kind of athlete that Nico Iamaleava have. This dude is like Trevor Lawrence meets Deshaun Watson. You know, he has the kind of build that Trevor Lawrence has, really tall and lengthy, but he has a lot of sneaky athleticism, which is what Tennessee was kind of missing last year. You see, Joe Milton, he had a good amount of athleticism that you had to account for, but Nico Iamaleava, you give this dude a little bit of green grass and he can take a 40-yard touchdown to the house, or he can take a 40-yard design quarterback run to the house for 6 due to how dynamic he is with the ball in his hands. You saw what he did in their bowl game against Iowa. He had 3 touchdowns on the ground in that game. And with the receiving core that he's going to be throwing to this year, he should be able to put up some prolific numbers and maybe be a dark horse Heisman contender. Because not only did Tennessee's offense suffer due to lackluster quarterback play in 2023, but they got beat up at wide receiver. A lot of guys that they were dependent on, such as Bro McCoy, they got injured. Well, he comes back healthy. You also got Squirrel White coming back. Deontay Thornton, who many people were high on. He was a transfer from Oregon that they got last year. You got a Tulane transfer and Chris Brazil, who is one of the better wide receivers in the portal. And you return 3 out of 5 starters on your offensive line. This offense is going to be really explosive, and they're going to be back to playing at the level that they were in 2022. And defensively, this may be the strongest that Tennessee has been on this side of the ball. Now, they still don't have a secondary, but they got a damn good front 7. They got linebackers that are good against the pass and the run. And your defensive line, your pass rush, is led by a projected number 1 overall pick and James Pierce Jr. Not only do you have James Pierce Jr., but you have a couple of other guys that can get after the quarterback and have the possibility to be playing in the NFL. So of how good the pass rush is going to be for Tennessee, that's going to help out their secondary, because when you can get pressure on the quarterback consistently, the guys in your secondary aren't going to be in coverage for that long. So that helps them out. And just naturally, with the style of offense that Tennessee runs, high pace, up-tempo, your defense is always going to be at a disadvantage due to the amount of plays that they're going to be on the field for, which is why you need to have good depth and guys that you can rotate so you can keep your starters fresh. Tennessee has that on the defensive line as well. Although they're playing a tough schedule, you got to play Georgia, Kentucky, a lot of other good schools this year. The gap between Tennessee and some of the upper echelon teams in this conference, like Texas, Alabama, I don't think it's really that big. I really believe that Tennessee is good enough to beat any team that they play this year. There's not a single game that they don't have a chance at being able to win, including Georgia, because they got the luxury of playing Georgia at home this year. Now, remember, the last time I thought Tennessee was going to beat Georgia, they got smacked in the mouth. They got beat up and swallowed and spit out and stepped on when they played Georgia at home in 2022. But this year, though, with how good they're going to be up front, they can match Georgia's physicality on the line of scrimmage. They got as many NFL guys on that defensive line as what Georgia has on their offensive line. And you got to be able to handle yourself up front when you're going up against an Alabama or Georgia or Texas. And Tennessee definitely has the talent to be able to hold up and win that line of scrimmage battle against a team like a Georgia. So I'm really high on Tennessee this year. Along with most people, this should be one of those teams that you have penciled in to be a lock and a surefire participant in the 12-team college football playoffs. And this is going to be a really dynamic team this year. Then get after your quarterback. You're going to have great quarterback play out of Nico Iamaleava with great receivers around them to work with. I don't see how Tennessee wins anything less than 10 games, and they got a really good shot at being able to win the SEC this year due to the talent that they're going to have and the fact that you're going to have some of your more tougher games being played in your own building. This is it for this episode of JT Sports Live. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. If you're listening on X and YouTube, hit that like button, follow, subscribe so you don't miss when we drop new content. Also, remember that we are not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. You can find this episode and all of our other ones in audio format, wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Spotify, Amazon. If you enjoyed, give us a 5-star review. Helps us out a lot. If you got any questions that you would like answered on a future episode, you can send them in the DMs on Instagram at JTSports_ and on X at JTSports__. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I will see you guys shortly